Timing is horrendous. Hello, everyone.
We're live.
Timing is always an issue. Such is life. Welcome back to Art Fisher. We're taking a gander at Paul Thomas Anderson today, PTA. Yeah, not PDA, PTA.
And not Paul W.S. Anderson.
No.
Populist filmmaker W.S. Anderson.
Shut your mouth. We're just confusing the audience with each episode. And not Wes Anderson, the other episode we did. This one is Paul Thomas Anderson. All right. Well, you know a little bit more about him from the beginning. You've seen his shorts. He usually wears pants, but yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, so Paul Thomas Anderson was born in Los Angeles. He grew up around film sets and radio stars and television stars. His dad was in radio and television. I think he was known for like hosting some kind of like horror radio show. But yeah, basically he was shooting movies from a very young age and was just constantly surrounded by famous people. And that probably formed a fair amount of who he is and who he was going to become. Just sort of knowing that he would be a writer or a filmmaker of some kind. Um, I know he made the Dirk Diggler story, which is a short film in the late '80s, before he was even in college, and that movie would later go on to become Boogie Nights, for the most part. But he went to college, dropped out after a few years. Interestingly, had David Foster Wallace, famous postmodern author, as a professor at one point. Dropped out of school, made a bunch of money gambling, and then made another short film called Cigarettes and Coffee. Um, and that did really well at the Sundance Festival, which allowed him to get into the Sundance feature film program, the result of which was him actually being taught technically how to make like a feature film. And so he turned Cigarettes and Coffee into Hard Eight, his first movie. Stars Philip Baker Hall, Samuel L. Jackson, John C. Reilly, and Gwyneth Paltrow. And the movie is about gamblers and con men. It's a pretty good movie. I would recommend it.
How much did he make gambling? I thought he only made like 10,000.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Cigarettes and Coffee only cost like 20,000. So I think he made 10K,
okay.
And then like maxed out a few credit cards, and that's how he made that movie.
Gotcha. I mean 10,000 back then in the early 90s.
Mm-hmm.
That's a decent amount of money, but yeah, it's not like he made like 500,000, but
it's like
still.
How Kevin Smith made Clerks. He just maxed out like 6 credit cards.
Huge brain. Just go all in.
Well, yeah, that's Kevin Smith is a story for another time.
New York Islanders, Kevin Smith.
Yes.
I believe that's his team. I picture him in orange and blue.
Yeah, he loves the Islanders. But basically, Hard Eight put Anderson on the map. It was really well reviewed by a lot of critics. It did not make much money. It's actually a common theme amongst Anderson's films is they rarely make a lot of money. It cost something like $3 million, and it did not recoup the losses. But it was a proof of concept that he was a visionary, original filmmaker who could write original scripts. This movie, I would say, feels a lot like a Hitchcock movie, a bit like an Altman movie, Scorsese, like some big names of people who made a lot of crime thrillers, crime dramas. Feels very reminiscent of those.
But it separated him from like other people who were making movies in a similar genre where it wasn't just like man with gun need to like secure MacGuffin or whatever, or it just is that and it's done in a different way.
Yeah, it has a really frenetic energy to it.
Okay.
So
Like the
if
editing and the shot choices, I assume, demonstrate like his abilities.
yes, yeah.
Okay.
It's a pretty well shot movie overall. Definitely not his best. Um,
I would imagine that on both fronts, yeah.
it
That
has a
it's well,
very open-ended ending.
okay.
Um, so I don't really want to spoil it because it is worth a watch. Um, but it's a lot of the content of the plot of the movie is very similar to his next one, Boogie
Just to
Nights.
backtrack here, you're talking about Heart 8, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, his
Just
first Heart 8.
just making sure.
Yeah, primarily it is about John C. Riley, who's like a hobo who learns like he is the protege of Philip Baker Hall, who's like an experienced gambler and con man.
Mhm. Yeah.
And in the middle of the story, there's John C. Riley has a relationship with Gwyneth Paltrow. Um, so there's a bunch of like paying for sex, gambling, tons of violence. There's a really good scene at the end of like just perfect Hitchcockian suspense, um, which, as usual, ends with Samuel L. Jackson being killed, as is tradition. People may not know it.
Literally ruined. I mean,
It does not ruin the movie because
no,
that's
no,
not the
no.
end of the movie. There's
No,
more.
I know.
Um,
I mean, him being in the movie kind of in the 90s is just like, "Oh, so Samuel L. is going to get got."
he gets killed in so many '90s movies.
Yes.
I Yeah, I probably shouldn't say more because I don't want to spoil just a swath of other movies. But um,
I mean, now if anyone goes into a movie and they're like, "Hey, this is from the 90s." Oh, Samuel L's in this. Uh-oh.
well, there are a few where he doesn't, where you think that he would. So
And those movies typically fake it out. Like the music comes up and you're like him turning a corner assuming that like some spear is going to get like run through him or something.
yeah, well, we haven't talked too much about we've picked a lot of more serious TV and films and things to cover on here. We haven't dived into some of the more glorious schlock that I'm at least a huge fan of. But
Those
one
will definitely be titled Schlock Cast, and it'll just be like the Samuel L. Deep Blue Sea Dive or something like that.
exactly, that's where I would begin is with Deep Blue Sea because that's the perfect like they literally set him up as like the guy in that situation who's going to live, and he gives this rousing speech of how they're going to get out alive because he already like the setup is that he survived some like horrific tumultuous accident in the past, and then he just gets gobbled up by a shark as soon as the speech ends. He
Isn't
just
he a doctor?
no, he's like
Or is he the scientist on the island or
no,
whatever?
he gets flown into the
Oh,
shark research station because I think he's on the board of the company maybe. Like he's the CEO or a shareholder. And he's
yeah.
there to like do an audit basically and make sure the money's being spent correctly. And then, the plot of the movie is that a bunch of sharks got turned super smart and
Yeah,
then they kill everyone.
and it seems like he's in the movie in order to like fix everything, and then the movie's like, no way.
Because he is the best actor in the movie by a mile, other than Stellan Skarsgård. Um,
Good God, that's right. He's just casually in that.
yeah. There's that. It's a weird cast. LL Cool J plays the stereotypical like Southern black chef who has a fucking parrot. Uh, the
Yeah,
parrot and LL Cool J survived the film.
we
That's the
gotta
biggest twist.
we gotta get back to that. We gotta get back to that at
Back
some
on
point.
track.
Yeah.
Back. Oh.
We'll do that episode one day. But yeah, back to this.
What's that one guy's name? Michael Rappaport.
Yeah.
He's in that too.
Yes, that dude. Um, but yeah, Boogie. So Hard Eight came out in '96. Boogie Nights came out in '97.
Yeah.
And like you said, Hard Eight is a precursor to Boogie Nights. Boogie Nights took Hard Eight's cast and then like ramped it up even more and really put Mark Wahlberg on the map, right? Because Mark Wahlberg before this was Marky Mark then, I
Yeah,
assume.
a rapper.
And then he inserted him here and I mean, yeah, he's strong in this movie, I would say. You haven't seen this one.
Not the whole way through, no.
Julianne Moore is in it, Burt Reynolds,
Don Cheadle, John C.
John C.
Riley, William
Riley,
H. Macy,
yeah,
Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Heather
A lot of
Graham.
people that he would, yeah, and Heather Graham. A lot of people that he would work with repeatedly.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
But yeah, this movie is it's extremely self-aware, which like if you go into it without knowing what it is, you'll definitely enjoy it. I mean, you know what it is, but I'm more so talking about the audience. So I really don't want to ruin it for anyone out there. But basically, Mark Wahlberg is in the porn industry.
and
Um,
is he incredibly well endowed, like he is in the Dirk Diggler story?
yes,
Okay.
yes, this man is definitely flaunting a sledgehammer. Like he's doing well. And there's a really good quote in it, and I won't ruin it. Um, but yeah, it's a very self-aware story. And it really starts to assert Anderson's style where I'm sure it was evident in Hard Eight, but it's not I really don't want to ruin it for you,
We're
but
gonna have I'm gonna ruin every other movie he's made, so
okay.
that
Well,
would make
anyway,
this
it
alone.
feels it feels like a satisfying or like a happy ending, but it is not. Like it ends and you're like, "Oh, well that's kind of good." And then you just like kind of stop for 5 minutes and then you're like, "But wait, this character wanted this and this character why they seem happy, but they definitely aren't." Like
Everyone
that's
has
like
to
how it
settle.
ends. Kind of. They're like yeah, characters are settling, but then all their characters are there to like support someone and you're just like, okay, this is definitely not what they wanted. Um which is a continual thing with Anderson. Like he doesn't all of his movies aren't tragedies, right? But they have like jagged edges to them. And typically like the climax of the story is something violent happens, resulting in a character either turning face or then settling or tragedy striking because of that decision, I would say.
Gotcha. Yeah, I've always viewed the three movies he made in the 90s as being a part of one era of him as a filmmaker.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a larger gap like between Magnolia and There Will Be Blood, where he only made one movie and shot a lot of music videos, which is sort of an in-between period before he evolved into like a completely self-assured, very high-quality filmmaker. But I mean, I've heard nothing but good things about this for the most part. I've been meaning to see it. It's a long movie, and I kind of know what I'm getting into, and know I'll enjoy it, which is why I haven't seen it because a 2.5 hour movie filled with gratuitous sex and violence made by Paul Thomas Anderson. With
I've I've only seen it once and I definitely watched it on the portable DVD player.
oof,
Like, yeah. Yeah. So, and I watched it like way too young. So it's just
mm,
like the gratuitous sex and violence where my brain was like, whoa, this is a lot. What's happening here? I've never seen anything like this before. And then yeah, like it is, it's definitely sexploitative in some ways. Um, but it's doing what?
Yeah, I don't think you can make a movie about a well-endowed porn Mark Wahlberg without
No, but
exploiting sex.
well, but my point is it's sexploitative, but then it's also like shifting gears to do something that's like completely self-aware. Like it's not just like doing the schlock with it.
Mm,
And a lot of the camera work that's in it, similar to Magnolia, like really pins down the emotion of the scenes as opposed to it just being like about porn and a director. Um, yeah, perfect segue into Magnolia.
yeah, so basically, Hard Eight was, a very competent film made by a burgeoning amateur. Boogie Nights is the proof of concept that Anderson is a professional filmmaker, hugely successful, actually made money, nominated for awards, Oscars, didn't win him any or win anybody any. Um, but it allowed him to work with a lot of the same people, and basically he was given a blank check and told make whatever you want. Um, so he went into Magnolia hoping to make like a small personal drama, and then my guess is I have never substantiated this, but due to the nature of the movie, my guess is that Anderson was on a lot of amphetamines, i.e., cocaine, at the time, and that he just kept having more and more ideas. And so this movie ballooned into an over 3 hour long opus about small stories that
Yeah,
turns into one gigantic story.
I was gonna say when you said a small drama, and then I was thinking about it, and I was like, that is not what it is. And then I clicked on IMDb, an epic mosaic of interrelated characters, which is
Yep.
definitely what it is. It's definitely an opus with many separate characters.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right, Jason Robards. Damn.
Yeah, this was Jason Robards' final film, I
Yeah,
believe.
R.I.P. He's great in Julius Caesar, actually, in one of
Mm,
the Caesar um adaptations. He plays Brutus.
okay.
He kills it. Um, yeah, Tom Cruise, Jason Robards, Julianne Moore, Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Yeah,
Um,
enormous ensemble cast. William H. Macy again.
mhm.
Uh,
uh,
yeah, a lot of different stories in this one. I don't know if it's seven.
I think it's either 6 or 7, but the emotion, like I would argue, comes even more like full circle in this as opposed to Boogie Nights. Um, which doesn't make it better than Boogie Nights. It's just like more of the point of this movie.
Yeah, yeah. Like that's the stories don't all overlap, although many of them do. The main point is that it is an extremely earnest approach to just mining emotion from a lot of very different characters that builds as the movie goes on. Um, Produces a very specific type of um, melancholic, sort of bittersweet energy that
Hmm.
builds and builds and builds until finally the semi-controversial ending.
Yeah.
Because I
Uh,
know some people like Boogie Nights is far more considered a classic than this is. Um, this movie is largely still considered too long, melodramatic, um, sort of bigger than it needed to be to get its point across, and it has a ridiculous ending. Um,
yes.
that I think a lot of people were like, okay, so
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely agree that that's most people's takes from this movie. Um, that was definitely my initial thoughts on it after seeing it. I've only seen this one once. Somehow I've only seen all of his movies once, except for There Will Be Blood. Unfortunately. But yeah, I really enjoyed this one. It leaves a lot to think about after finishing it. Obviously, as you said, it is an opus. It's kind of like finishing a novel. Like after you finish a novel, like you kind of need like maybe a day or a few days to really like kind of bathe in the impact of all of the different characters. I don't want to go on too much of a tangent here, but this kind of feels like a completely separate. There's some type of thread that connects this with American Beauty. I'm not sure what it is. It may be the way that like it came out the same year, and like the emotion that it's going after is similar, but the endings are completely different. Like the call to action and like the philosophies, I think, are like way different. But for some reason, yeah, that movie also comes to mind when thinking about this.
Hmm.
I don't know if it's because they're both like on, well, American Beauty is somewhat more postmodern in its like philosophy.
Yeah, this has more of a modernist approach, um, philosophy wise, to like, everyone needs to consider someone else's perspective to get along with them, and looking past people's flaws to essentially love them.
Yeah,
Um,
which is
it has a
very
lot of elements of like closure, which doesn't exist in American Beauty.
right. And I think it's really easy to write off um like the earnestness and the clichéness that this movie, like it's very easy to feel cliched when watching this. Like it's easy to just be like, oh yeah, that's just like if you care about people and think about how they think about other people, then the world will be a lot better and you'll be a better person. Um
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think this movie, like, there are plenty of films or just stories in general where, like, they can have a complex web of characters and plots that all merge together and feel satisfying. And this one obviously doesn't, but each story feels very satisfying.
mm,
Um, and even if some of the plots end up being more cliched, like Tom Cruise's plot having to reconcile with his dying and then dead dad,
yeah.
um, or like John C. Riley falling in love with he's a cop, but he loves a fucking cokehead. Like, all of that stuff has definitely been done before, but it's never all been put into the same story this way, and all of it is executed at the highest level. Like, this is one of Tom Cruise's best performances.
Oh yeah,
Um,
hands down.
a great performance from John C. Riley. Philip Baker Hall is excellent. William H. Macy's excellent. Julianne Moore is great. Who's the girl that plays the lady who um falls in love with John C. Riley? Um,
That I don't know.
oh, she's also famous.
Melora Walters.
Laura Walters.
I don't I don't know. The the casting like on IMDb for this
Guess she's
is
sad.
all is horrendous.
Well, there's a lot of people in this movie, so it makes sense. But
No,
uh,
but like the people who you would think are at the top are just not.
who's at the top?
Well, Philip Baker Hall is not, William H. Macy is not,
Who is
and
at the
John
top?
C. Riley are just scattered out.
Who's at
It's
the top?
Tom Cruise, Jason Robards, Julianne Moore, Philip Seymour Hoffman, Pat Healy,
Yeah, it's
and
by
then
billing usually.
Genevieve Zweig, Mark Flanagan, Neil Flynn, McLaughlin, Alan Groff. Yeah,
That
Patton
sounds
Oswalt.
almost more like just the appearance. But Patton Oswalt is in this movie?
Evidently.
I don't remember that at all.
Delmer Darien. I don't remember that either. Yeah, I agree that this is definitely one of Tom Cruise's best performances.
I mean, this is just one of my favorite movies, and I think a masterpiece. I disagree with the criticisms levied against this one.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it takes any of its characters for granted, and like proves that Anderson can direct a very wide variety of stories and stitch them together into a movie that still makes sense despite not, you know, having the plot be A plot, B plot, C plot, D plot all converge at the same time. They do,
Yeah,
but not like in the same place.
yeah,
It's more thematic than it is
it's almost an anthology, but not quite, because the characters' stories do cross. And I think that's probably where a lot of people lose the movie, where they're like, "Oh, well, I wish that it just like was blended in a little better, or I wish it like crossed a lot more." And it's like, well, then you're missing the point.
yeah. Yeah, it's not meant to be like that. Not meant to be a Tarantino movie in that way.
It's not meant to be what the hell is the name of that movie where it like continues tracking the different characters and like the bomb goes off in the stadium?
Vantage
Vantage.
Point?
Yes, yes.
Oh boy. Talk about schlock.
Yeah. His next movie of note, aside from Saturday Night Live
Uh
things that he was involved
yeah.
in, was Punch Drunk Love.
I did have two more things I wanted to say about this about Magnolia.
Go for it.
One was that at some point while filming it, um he was trying to get Tom Cruise available to shoot because Tom Cruise had been stuck in the UK for years shooting Eyes Wide Shut with Stanley Kubrick.
Oh God.
And so Anderson went there to get Cruise to try to hammer out when they could shoot the stuff. And uh, Anderson was able to meet Kubrick like, I don't know, 6 months before he died.
Holy shit.
Um, I remember hearing that in an interview that Anderson did, just being like, "Yeah, I just casually met Kubrick like on a off day of shooting, and he was just talking about how Tom Cruise was like the only actor he liked because he liked working as much as he did."
Damn.
Uh, what was the other thing I was gonna say?
Something else about
Ah,
Magnolia.
yeah. So the end of the movie, the part that people don't necessarily get. The quote I've always liked that Anderson has said is like, "Well, if we had the budget for it, it would have rained cats and dogs," which only makes sense if you've seen the movie, but should give you more of an indication of what the movie's about. If for some reason you were like, "Huh, that was dumb."
Yeah. That also and gives you some insight into Paul Thomas Anderson's like ideas.
Yeah,
Like they're not bombastic by any stretch, but like they are really wild. Um which we will get more into, especially with like Pinchin. Um but yeah, Punch Drunk Love. Is this a is this based on a different story, or did he write this himself? Oh yeah, it's just written by him.
yeah.
I must confess I also haven't seen this one. It's very short.
Oh, he's
Like
written all of his movies, by the way,
right.
and did
But
not co-write any of them either.
but I'm but the late some of the later ones are adapted, or at least Inherent Vice.
Very loosely adapted.
Yeah,
Inherent Vice is the closest one, but that's just because that was he titled it after the novel.
right.
Um, yeah, Punch Drunk Love. So basically, he after Magnolia, he was a little burned out. Um, and he's like knew for years that he just wanted to make like a straight up hour and a half long 90-minute romantic comedy.
Mhm.
And Anderson apparently loved Adam Sandler movies, so he was like, I want to make an Adam Sandler movie. So they did. This movie lost money, like a lot of his movies, um, which was too bad because it only cost 25 million to make.
Damn.
Which I imagine may have hurt his career a little bit, but obviously it didn't.
Was that a fuzzy?
It was, yeah, some stray cat hair that's just floating around in this place.
Nice.
Yeah, this, I don't really know how much to say about this. It is more than a by the numbers rom com.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's definitely, it's my least favorite Anderson movie by far. It is one of Adam Sandler's better career performances.
Until Uncut Gems.
Yeah, that's why I said better, because it's definitely not Uncut Gems. Uncut Gems shits all over this movie. Um, this this movie is like sort of like an R-rated version of the first 50 dates with different plot elements, which is just another crappy Adam Sandler rom-com. Um, but this one at least still has the hallmarks of Anderson's writing, both his like sharp dialogue, his like really competent camera work that always keeps things moving. Um, it still hits all the major emotional beats pretty well. It just never hit me as hard as any of his other films. Um, like it obviously lacks the dramatic over the topness of Magnolia. It
Mm-hmm.
lacks the intensity and insanity of both Boogie Nights and Hard Eight. It doesn't examine the fascinating things that would later come with There Will Be Blood. And it's just too, it feels too formulaic compared to everything he would then do in the 2010s.
Right.
So in that way, it is kind of his like more lost movie. But when talking about Paul Thomas Anderson or even Adam Sandler, this movie does come up. And for years, this movie came up as the basis for people who would defend Adam Sandler. Because for a long time, people would say, yeah, Adam Sandler's movie sucks, but
Be
like
right
he did
back.
do that one movie where, oh,
Just keep talking.
no, we're done.